video explains the idea of running a gear. And as part of the project on scientific transparency, we use gears, we use the idea of gears as a way to compute on with the data that's inside of the database that we manage. So the Flywheel in particular uses the term gear to describe the process of retrieving data from a database, selecting the parameters that you're going to use, and then analyzing the data with a program that's generally stored in a Docker container. Finally, after you've got the parameters and you've run the program on data from the database, we take the result and the parameters and we put it back into the database, and that helps maintain your code and analyses according to standards of scientific transparency and reproducibility. So now I'm going to log in to the particular database that we're running at Stanford, in my lab. And I'm going to illustrate one simple gear for anatomical processing. And that's a gear for skull stripping, for brain extraction. In fact, we built a Docker container that runs the FSL brain extraction tool. And in this particular example, we're going to use a command line interface to retrieve data from this database that's over here. And the database has lots of data. It's about 1,400, almost 1,500 sessions with all kinds of public and private data that you can visualize and examine. It was collected for various purposes. And we're going to do brain extraction on one of the particular data sets. In general, there will be many gears, many types of gears for a very wide range of data processing purposes. And we're building these gears to do things such as tractography, cortical mesh visualization, quality assurance and control, tissue measurement, spectroscopy, and lots of other examples. In the near future, we're going to be able to operate gears directly from the web browser by an easy-to-use graphical interface. But this code is designed, and this tutorial is designed to show you what happens behind the scenes, behind the browser, and how to interact, and also to show you how that you can always interact with the database directly through a command line interface, either through MATLAB or Python. And you can use these command line tools to build and run your own gears. So let's get started with the process. The way we interact with a database like this one, like this Flywheel Scitran Scientific Transparency interface at Stanford, is first you need to log in. You need to authorize yourself. So that's a simple little program that went and actually returned the URL that we're interacting with, and also a secret token that, from my instance, is just a long string that guarantees security. We're going to run this particular application on my computer here. So it's going to be, I'm going to configure a Docker container to run locally. In general, you can run these Docker containers lots of places in the cloud and so forth, and that's something that Flywheel will make it possible for you to do. So you don't have to have your own computer to run it on, but you can run it anywhere else. But for those of you interested in it, installing and configuring Docker machines to run on your own computers is quite a simple process and free. Okay, next we're going to go execute a search in the database over here. So we're going to set up a search here to look for files. There are going to be files inside of a collection that's called gear test. They're going to be T1 weighted nifty files, and we're going to go run this search. And we've now found some files. In fact, I happen to know that we found 4 of them, and they have different names and so forth. And we'll be able to download them and find them, and you don't have to worry about all the things that are in here, but all kinds of information about the files was returned by the search. So next we're going to go get the first file, and we could loop and do them all, but we're just going to get one of them for this demonstration. And we've already now downloaded that file, so it came from the database over to my local computer here. And now we're going to get the Docker parameters all set up so that we're going to be able to run the Docker container. So we're running the Docker container. It was downloaded from Docker Hub onto my computer. It ran the brain extraction tool. It wrote out a nifty gzip nifty file with the brain extracted and let me know that things worked out okay. And now we're set to go and take the output and upload it. So we can just put it back in the database, and that we just filled out a few slots over here as to where it should go. And now we can go, so that's been done, and we can now go over to the database. And over here you can see this is the gear test collection that we were operating on. We got a couple of files. We got one of the files from over here down, and we did our analysis and we put it back up there. And so here is in fact the original file that we downloaded, and you can see that if we look at it, it's got a perfectly healthy skull, handsome skull if I've ever seen one. And then we ran the brain extraction code, and that's been noted by the database, what was run and what the parameters were and so forth. That's stored in there. And here's the result, which we can visualize. And sure enough, the tool ran really very nicely on this data set, and you can check it for yourself. You can look it up. So in summary, we have now that's what a gear means. A gear means that we retrieve the data from a database, the Scitran database in this case. We selected the parameters that are put into the Docker container. We downloaded the Docker container, executed it, and then we placed the results back into the database, where we have a record of what the inputs were, what the outputs were, and there's a lot of information back here in the database that we can look up, describing which container was run and what its parameters were and so forth. That will be searchable and useful by anybody. We're committed to making all our code and the parameters transparent, and these tools here make it easy. Well, we don't know if we hope it makes it easy. We're committed to helping you try to run tools just like this so you can share your own gears and make your own code and compute shareable and reproducible and transparent. And that's why we call this the Project on Scientific Transparency.